What's up, guys? My name is Dustin Lang. I'm the online pastor here at NewStory Church. I want to welcome you to our YouTube channel. Here we'll be posting content that inspires you, that challenges you, and most importantly, leads you closer to Jesus. Hope you enjoy.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die.
I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
We will. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
I like this one.
You can clap, you can clap. Does that trailer make you want to go outside, find some bad guys and beat them up? Yeah. Every time I see it, I get so inspired. And this is actually going to be the last sermon in a 7-part series that we've been doing called At the Movies. If we've never met before, my name is Dustin. I'm the college and young adult pastor here at NewStory LA. And thank you. Free food for you guys today. And I'm so excited to share about this film and its Endgame. Can I ask this question? Who in here has not seen this movie? Okay. Just go ahead. Whoever's hand is raised, just the rest of you lay a hand on them. We're going to pray for them. We're going to pray for those who have not yet gone out to the theaters and seen this. For those of you guys who have not seen this, I do want to let you know that I'll be sharing all the spoilers. Every spoiler that is important, I'm pretty much going to be sharing about that. So please do not get upset at me. If you do, we will have some people around who can pray for you. But I promise you it's going to be worth it. The reason I'll be sharing from this film is there are certain parts that I have to share. I have to share because there's such a powerful truth that is taught in these different moments. So, we'll be talking about Endgame today. Let me share a little bit about this film. Did you guys know that it is the 22nd of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe films that started with Iron Man in 2008? It's the first film to make over $1 billion in its opening weekend. And it is the highest grossing film of all time, making roughly $2.8 billion. The producers were so secretive with the story that of the entire cast, only Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man, actually had the full script. Everybody else only received bits and pieces because they wanted to keep the story under wraps. Not only that, but they actually filmed Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s most important scene only 2 weeks before the premiere. 2 weeks because they wanted to keep it a secret. I won't tell you what happened in that scene yet, but I actually will tell you what happens later on. If you've seen it, Avengers is an awesome movie, and it's about these multiple Marvel Cinematic Universe heroes who band together to fight evil. And this evil group is led by this guy named Thanos, who's one of the strongest supervillains of all time. But what I love about this film is the truth that it teaches us about life. You see, there's certain parts of this movie where I go, it's not that believable, right? People with superpowers, time travel, like that in the movie is not that realistic. But there are certain moments, certain parts of this film that actually capture reality extremely well. And one of those important truths that we see in this film is that we only have one life to live. See, today we're going to be talking about that. This truth that we have one life to live and the implications of that. That you and I just have this one life, this one shot to live our lives the right way. And then we'll talk about the implication, what that means today for us. But let's start with this. You have one life to live. Look at the person next to you and say, you have one life to live. You have one life to live. You see, this statement is important because ultimately, this statement, it reminds us to remember the duration of our lives. To remember the duration of our lives. See, we don't live forever. In fact, we actually live very short lives. It's not just food and coupons that have expiration dates, but we have expiration dates as well. You see this in the movie where in this one moment, half of the world is wiped away with one snap.
Nice throw, kiddo.
Go.
Hey, you guys want mayo or mustard or both?
What's mayo in a hot dog?
By your brothers. Two mustard, please. Thanks, Mama.
Got it. Nate, mayo or mustard?
How about ketchup?
Gotcha. Got ketchup too?
Mind your elbow. Good job, Haka. Look at your arrow.
Hey guys, enough practice. Soup's done.
All right. We're coming. We're hungry. Now let's go. Lila? Honey? Hey, Ben? 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 Boys! Boys! Laura!
This clip just shows us this powerful truth about life, that we don't live forever. We don't live forever. In fact, we live very short lives. You know, Scripture also talks about this very point. In James chapter 4, verse 14, it says this, "Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." You are a mist. You know what a mist is? It's what comes out of Pastor Tom's mouth when he's preaching. It's there and then it's gone. It's a mist. a mist, right? That our lives are here for just a short moment and then we're gone. You see, Scripture teaches us that truth. The Endgame shows us that truth. And so sometimes we can live as if we're going to be here forever, but the truth is, we're not going to. It's not to make us feel down, but it's a reality that we're not going to live forever. So you could actually be here today and gone in a moment. I remember there was a season when I was staying with my parents after college, and there was this day, this one morning, when my mom rushes into my room and she wakes me up and she says, Andrew died. And I woke up and I was like, Mom, what do you mean? Which Andrew? Who are you talking about? She says, Andrew died. And I could hear that her voice was trembling as she was sharing that news with me. I said, which Andrew? And she said, you know that friend of yours from your childhood. He was riding his bike, got hit by a bus, and passed away on his way to the hospital. And I remember that moment, it struck me because he was in his early 20s. But what that showed me was that life doesn't continue on forever. That there's going to be a moment when our lives do end. We don't know if we have tomorrow. See, you have one life to live. You have one life to live. And that statement reminds us to remember the duration of our lives, but it also causes us to rethink the direction of our lives, to rethink the direction of our lives. You see, in this movie, Endgame, there's a moment when several of the Avengers, they go to Iron Man. They ask him to help them in that fight against evil. And you know, at first, Iron Man says no. He says, I'm not going to fight. Why? Because in his life, it was comfortable. He had his family, he had his wife and his child. He had his happiness. In a sense, his life was comfortable, and so why would he fight in this battle? In his mind, it didn't make sense. But in the midst of his comfort, half of the world had already disappeared. Half of the world had vanished in the snap of a finger. People were in hurt and in anguish. And then there's this moment when Iron Man is reminded of a person he cares about. And because of that, the direction of his life changes.
A lot of inspiration to see if it checks out. So, like one last sim before we pack it in for the night. This time in the shape of a Mobius strip. Invert it, please.
Processing.
Right, getting that eigenvalue of that particle, factoring in spectral decomp. That'll take a second.
Just a moment.
And don't worry if it doesn't pan out. I'm just kind of...
Model rendered.
In this scene, when Iron Man looks at that picture, that's a picture of Peter Parker, who for all of us comic nerds know is Spider-Man. Spider-Man had passed away with that Thanos snap. And so Iron Man saw that picture, it reminded him that there was still something to give his life to. And because of that, he ended up engaging in this fight. In Scripture, there's a story of a man who focused so much on these everyday things, on his comfort, on what he had in front of him and all of his stuff. And then he forgets to remember the duration of his life and how the direction of his life should align with that. This is from Luke chapter 12, verses 16 through 21. And it says this, "And Jesus told them a parable saying, 'The land of a rich man produced plentifully. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? For I have nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I will do this. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God." You see, this man, his land starts producing a lot of crops. And so he has trouble finding space for all of his possessions. So he starts building bigger barns so he can store all of his stuff. And after this, he starts thinking, now I'm going to relax from all this hard work. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my life with good food, personal happiness, and just relaxation. See, but God's response to him in this passage is, fool. See, that's the one thing you never want to hear from your Creator, for him to say, fool. Yet the way that he was living was foolish. And later on, what good is all of these pursuits for you? What good is all of this if your life ends? You see, we need to rethink the direction of our lives. Given that our lives don't last forever, we need to rethink the direction of our lives. See, it sounds obvious. It's one of those, of course, kinds of statements, but when was the last time that you just took time and you thought about the direction that your life was headed in? Where you just paused and you thought, where's my life going? See, because we can live life without direction and without purpose. See, we can do what everyone else is doing or what everybody else is telling us to do. Get good grades, get into a good school, get a high-paying job that allows you to have a life of comfort. Marry that person who's going to make you happy, have kids, go on vacations, and then after that, just teach that whole process to your children afterwards. See, we can hear all these things, and many times we can fall into that cycle of just doing this, of just living life this way without really thinking about the direction that our life is headed toward. And so maybe today, we need to ask ourselves that question. Are we headed in the right direction? This was a thought that I had in my mind after I got married to my wife, Jennifer, and we've been happily married now. 1 year, 9 months, 28 days ago, we got married, and it's been just an amazing season. But I can tell you that now, I really think this has been one of the sweetest seasons. Not one of the easiest seasons, but one of the sweetest seasons. And this is why. You see, as we were getting ready to get married, we had to plan out our wedding, and we're looking at these nice venues, these nice decorations, and then we start planning out just where we're going to live, and we're starting to buy furniture, going to IKEA, going to Amazon, and it was a season where I felt like it was just so comfortable. After we got married, we had people who gave a lot to us, so we had savings in our account, And I remember just having these thoughts where I realized I could just be at home with me and my wife, never go out, and I could be completely happy. Just play Monopoly, deal with my wife, just eat kimchi fried rice late at night with Spam, of course. And I could do that for the rest of my life, never go out, never have any concern for anybody else. And I could be completely happy. But there was this thought that was lingering in the back of my mind. And at first I couldn't articulate it, but there was this one night when I couldn't sleep. And there was just this unsettling thought in my mind, and I couldn't articulate it until that moment. And I realized there was this question that was on my mind. This question of, how well am I living this life? How well am I living this life? And I remember that thought was just, when I realized what that thought was, it became so clear to me why I felt unsettled, why there wasn't this complete fulfillment. It was that thought of, am I living my life well? Am I living it well? And I realized, there were things that we were doing that were great, but there were things that were missing in our life. We had this savings in our account, and I remember just my heart personally, every time I would open up my bank app and I would look at that savings number, I felt a sense of comfort and reassurance because I knew I had the savings to fall back on. And I knew that wasn't right. You know, when I called myself a follower of Jesus and someone who would trust in God's provision, I realized, how could I trust so much in my money when I was called to trust in God? Not only that, but we were investing a lot in Christians, and we were just pouring out our lives, just really spending a lot of time with them, which was good, but we realized there was something huge missing. There were people all around us, even in our apartment, who had never stepped foot in church before, who never experienced God's love and his grace before. And so we started talking, and I remember with the savings, we're like, what can we do? How can we step out of faith? How can we just trust God in our finances? And we started talking, and so we said, hey, let's do this. Let's spend a week in prayer. Let's pray through a number that God would call us to give away. And let's just do that. So then we wouldn't have to just put so much trust in this. Instead, we could be reminded that our trust is in God. And so we spent a week just praying, and we got back together, and she had a number, I had a number, which was higher because I love Jesus more. And then we came back together, and just kidding, baby, I'm sorry. It was just so liberating, be able to say, God, we want to trust in you more than we trust in money. And I can tell you, God has been so faithful in providing for us every step of the way since then. We were talking and going, how do we care for people who've never been out to church before? All right, let's just go around our apartment. We've got access to every single floor. Let's just knock on doors like the Mormons do, and let's just talk to people. Let's ask them how we can pray for them. And I know it sounds all spiritual and all, and that I really hope that's not the point that's communicated. But we experienced so much more joy in the little things we gave than the huge things that we experienced and received. And I can tell you, there's nothing more exciting than just using this relationship and trying to say, God, just use it as you want. It's not about us. It's about you. It's about other people coming to know how great you are. And it's the most fun. It's the most fulfilling. It's been such an exciting season, just being missional. And not just with my wife, but with other people and friends and friends in this church. You know, it's been such a fulfilling season. And I can tell you, a comfortable life will never give you that. It'll never give you that. But when you say, God, I don't want to live for myself. I want to live this life for you and for other people. Man, there is joy. There's so much joy in that. Maybe today God is reminding you that you have one life to live. Maybe it's a time to pause. And as you remember that fact, to also think about the direction of your life. Where is your life headed? Are you just doing what everybody else is telling you to do because it seems like, yeah, it's the practical thing? Or is your life making sense in the grander scheme of eternity? Let's make our lives count. Let's make our lives count. And so as we remember this truth that we have one life to live, we then need to make our lives count. And this is the second part of this message. We need to make our lives count. Look at the person next to you and in a very convicting tone say, make your life count. You guys did a good job. I think there weren't too many laughs. It's just uncomfortable. Okay, all right. See, the world says you make your life count by achieving more things, by getting more promotions, by getting more fame, more power, more prestige, more position. And that's what the world says is how you can make your life count. But I'm telling you that life is empty. As a person who became a millionaire before he was 26. No, I'm just playing. I just wanted to throw out that. Who's listening? Y'all saw me in a different way. Huh? I'm going to be his friend now. I probably will never be a millionaire. But as someone who achieved certain things in life, certain accolades, certain things, and people said, good job, you got there. That's the step that you need to get to. And I achieved those things. And I realized that life without Jesus was empty. No grade, no school, no position, no situation, no form of entertainment in life could ever bring me fulfillment the way that living for God has. See, that life of just achieving more, it's empty. But what does the Bible teach us? It teaches us that we can make it count. We can make our lives count by, number one, fighting for the things that matter. Look at the person next to you and say, fight for the things that matter. And then punch them in the arm. No, I'm just playing. See, fight for the things that matter. In Endgame, remember how I told you there was this scene that wasn't shot until 2 weeks before the premiere of that movie? Well, it's a scene of the Avengers fighting against Thanos and his army. And in this scene, Iron Man fights against Thanos, one of the most powerful supervillains of all time. All right, let's be honest. How many of you hate me for showing that? You can be on, okay, I know. We have a prayer team who will be here for you guys afterwards. See, Iron Man, he fights for something worth fighting for. He's fighting against evil and for good. He's fighting for the sake of humanity and literally laying down his life for that. You see, I believe that we were created to fight for things. And the things that matter. The things that matter. One of my greatest heroes in Scripture, his name is Paul. And Paul was one of those guys who just was crazy about Jesus. He was crazy where his life, after he encountered Jesus, he goes out, starts telling everybody about Jesus. Even after he's stoned in one city, he gets up, goes to the next city, and starts sharing more about Jesus. Right? This guy was intense. He was intensely in love with Jesus. And he wrote this in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. This is what he says. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. See, Paul fought the good fight. He fought the spiritual battle, right? The spiritual battle, which sometimes we don't think a lot about, but the Bible talks about the spiritual world that all of us live in. And ultimately, there's this battle being fought for people's souls because we're not just physical stuff. We actually have souls that last for an eternity. And Paul is writing that there's this good fight. There's this good spiritual fight to engage in. And that also means there's a bad fight. There are fights that are not worth fighting. Fighting over who does the dishes more at home. Sorry. Fighting to outcompete other people. Fighting to achieve more. Fighting to make a name for ourselves. See, there's a lot of things in this world that are fights, yes, but they're not good fights. And what Paul is saying is, I fought the good fight. See, we need to fight for the things that matter. There are important causes all around us to fight for. To feed the hungry, to improve our neighborhoods, to care for the homeless, to mend relationships, to care for our friends who are struggling with mental health issues, to see families healed. Right? There are so many issues, causes to fight for. And if there isn't a burden that we're willing to fight for, then maybe our hearts have become desensitized to the injustices around us. See, we need to fight for the things that matter. We need to fight for the things that matter. That's how we make our lives count. And we also make our lives count by sacrificing for the people who matter. So would you look at the person next to you and say, let's sacrifice for the people who matter. Do you ever think about what it takes to be a hero? Right? Sometimes we ask that question, like, if you could be any superhero, who would you be? And oftentimes people think what makes a superhero are superpowers. That's not true. Comic book theology right here. You ready for it? See, villains, superheroes, they both have superpowers. They both have superpowers. What is different between a villain and a superhero is that a villain will live a self-centered life of evil, while a hero will sacrifice himself for the good of others. I'll repeat that so you can tweet that later on. One more time, ready? A villain will live a self-centered life of evil, while a hero will sacrifice himself for the good of others. See, in Endgame, Iron Man ends up snapping his fingers with the Infinity Gauntlet. A little bit of context is he's not strong enough to use these stones that are in his gauntlet. Even using one of them would cause a human to pass away. But with all five, what he's signing up for is sacrificing his very life. And so this is what happens.
So I thought I'd probably better record a little greeting in the case of an untimely death on my part. I mean, not that death at any time is an untimely. This time travel thing that we're going to try and pull off tomorrow, it's got me scratching my head about the survivability. That's the thing. Then again, that's the hero gate. Part of the journey is the end. What am I tripping for? Everything's going to work out exactly the way it's supposed to. I love you 3,000.
You guys thought Breakthrough, which Pastor David preached on a few weeks ago, was a tearjerker. This is a tearjerker. This moment is so powerful. Iron Man who gives up his life so that others could live. Sacrificing his comfort so that others could live a more abundant life. See, this reminds me of a day that's coming up this week and a story that comes from that. I'm talking about September 11th. It's coming up this week, and I was looking through stories and I found this story of a hero who didn't wear a cape, didn't have superpowers, but he was a hero nonetheless. And it shows through the sacrifice he made for other people. This is about Mr. Crowther, who's working in the South Tower, the Twin Towers. He had been a volunteer firefighter earlier on in his life. And this is a story that is written about him. Amid the smoke, chaos, and debris, Crowther helped injured and disoriented office workers to safety, risking his own life in the process. Though they couldn't see much through the haze, those he saved recalled a tall figure wearing a red bandana to shield his lungs and mouth. He had come down to the 78th floor sky lobby, an alcove in the building with express elevators meant to speed up trips to the ground floor. In what's been described as a strong, authoritative voice, Crowther directed survivors to the stairway and encouraged them to help others while he carried an injured woman on his back. After bringing her 15 floors down to safety, he made his way back up to help others. Everyone who can stand now, Crowther told survivors while directing them to a stairway exit. If you can help others, do so. Someone said, he's definitely my guardian angel. No ifs, ands, or buts, because without him, we would be sitting there waiting until the building came down. This is what survivor Ling Young told CNN. Crowther is credited with saving 18 people that day. Crowther's body was later recovered alongside the rubbish in a stairwell heading back up the tower. He had passed away, sacrificing his life for other people. Because the Bible talks about sacrificial love like that as the greatest kind of love. And we see this in John chapter 15, verse 13. Jesus says this, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. Jesus said the greatest act of love is to lay down one's life for other people. And ultimately, Jesus not only told other people about this, but he showed other people what this looked like when he went to a cross and laid down his life so that others could live. To sacrifice, to lay down our lives, because that's what we saw Jesus do. And even if you're coming out to church maybe for the first time, maybe you're just curious about this whole God thing, well, I encourage you, look at the life of Jesus. Look at what he did in his life. And tell me, is this not something worth following? Something worth giving your life to? See, Jesus, he laid down his life so that we could be called his friends. Speaking of sacrificial love, I do want to share about a group that I just saw this perfectly displayed through yesterday. We had our first college gathering. It was called our college dinner party. It was upstairs in the youth room. We served Korean barbecue, which is why it probably still smells like Korean barbecue up there. But we had it at 6 p.m. And, you know, sometimes you might think, yeah, you just show up and 6 p.m., everything is ready to go. But that wasn't the case. You see, my college leaders, they shared the news with their friends saying, hey, why don't you guys come on out? Tried to lure them to church with Korean barbecue, and it worked pretty well. And they didn't just show up at 6 p.m., but 4 of them actually came at 1 p.m. yesterday, and they went out to buy groceries. Actually, the majority of whom in that group actually didn't really cook, but they just wanted to serve. They just wanted to love on college students. And I remember just observing throughout that day and seeing all the sacrifice that was made so that this dinner party could happen. People who were setting up the room upstairs, people who were preparing all the ingredients, prepping games, working on social media, taking pictures. We had 2 brothers who were grilling outside, fighting off these huge flames from our gas grill because none of us knew how it worked, and yet they were just cooking so that other people could have food to eat. One of our sisters, Grace Xiao, who actually cooked 8 pounds of beef brisket all by herself. All by herself. She told me afterwards she became vegan. Seeing that kind of sacrifice, seeing that kind of sacrifice, you know, that's what makes a person a hero. And you know, it wasn't just our official college leadership team, but there were college students who were asking how to get involved, how to help, how to serve. There was even one of our pastors, and I hate the fact that he's sitting right there in the back of this room, but Pastor David came out, and you know, he's not a great ping pong player, but he's an incredible pastor. And that's why he's a professional pastor, not a professional ping pong player, right? It makes sense. He's actually pretty good. I just like making fun of him. But, you know, he came out and probably expecting just to, you know, talk to a few students and whatnot, but came out early and just asked how he could get involved. Started chopping up watermelon and, if you know Pastor David, he's very OCD, so all of his watermelon slices were like perfectly arranged. And then he got really frustrated because he didn't want to make slices. He wanted to make cubes after that. So I think he's still really struggling with that. So if you just pray for him after service, I think he'd really appreciate it. But, he helped grill meat when the rest of us had to go upstairs. And, he just told me, hey, I took care of, later on he saw me, he said, I took care of all the dishes downstairs. So you guys just have to take care of what's upstairs. But I'm just going to slip out now. And he quietly slipped out. And, people don't hear those stories. You don't hear those stories about everyday heroes. And yet I believe that we have heroes right here in our midst. Not because they have superpowers and not because they wear capes, but because they're willing to sacrifice themselves in love for other people. See, you and I, we have one life to live. One life. We don't get a redo. We don't get time machines and we travel back in time, and we can't do that. We have one life to live. So let's make it count. Let's make it count. To not settle for a life of comfort, but to live a life that has purpose and meaning. To fight for the things that matter and to sacrifice ourselves for the people who matter. And what if we didn't just do this by ourselves, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, in our schools? But what if we did this collectively as a church? You see, there's something I'm really excited about, and no one told me to do this. Pastor Tom didn't say, hey, Dustin, can you actually just mention we love? It's not like that. Not even as a pastor, but just as a follower of Jesus. This campaign to love on our city has been something that has been so exciting for me, and I can't wait to see it happen. And I can't wait to do it with all of you. And so we're going to show you this clip. It's going to share a little bit about my wife's story and just her heart to care for our city. And so just go ahead and look up here. And again, that pretty lady's my wife, so pay close attention.
I first moved to LA about 5 years ago for college. It was a really nice place with beautiful ocean views and gorgeous weather. And after college, I got married to my best friend and I moved to downtown LA. We first moved to LA because we felt called to live in the heart of the city. And when we moved in, I really began to see everything that LA had to offer. The food, the people, the culture, it was all so amazing. But as great of an area that this place was, there was a huge economic disparity. I saw businessmen and women walk down the street with coffees in their hands as they passed by countless homeless people sitting on that same street. There was a strong disparity between the rich and the poor, and it's also apparent. That's why I'm so glad to be part of a church that cares for those in need. This September and October, we're partnering with local organizations all around Los Angeles to feed the hungry, heal the sick, care for the homeless, and love our neighbors. And this is not a one-person project, but a whole community effort that will require all hands on deck. I know I'll be there, and I hope to see you there too. Our city needs our care, but even more importantly, it needs the compassion and love of Jesus. Let's serve LA together.
Amen. And thank you to our team who helped make this video happen. It wasn't just Jennifer by herself. It was a group of people who really believe in this cause who made this video happen. I'm excited. I'm excited of just this thought of what if we became this church where we didn't make things about ourselves and our comfort and just doing what everybody else does? And what if we became a church that said, no, this life is not about me. It's not about me, it's about something so much greater. I know, what if we did this as one family, as one body? starting on September 28th, for 4 weeks, we're gonna have our We Love LA campaign. We'll have sermons that will share the heart behind this, and then on Saturdays, we'll have a chance to go out and to care for our city. Because how sad would it be if one day our church disbanded and people didn't even notice? Not that our church would disband, that's not the point, but what if our community felt the effect of having us here? What if people thought, NewStory, I know them. That's the church that took care of my neighborhood. That's the church that cared for my child when he was in need. That's the church that helped me get back on my feet so I can live this life again without the struggle. So here's what we're gonna do. There's a chance for you to respond. It's gonna feel a little bit, maybe not organic because it's with technology, but I promise you on the other side of that, there's people nonetheless. But if you do this, just take out your phones, and here's what we're gonna do. If you feel like God has just stirred something up in your heart, to live a life that's not for yourself, because you've one life to live, and you wanna make it count, but you wanna live for others, sacrificing yourself for those around you. Then do this. You could download our app, the NewStory Church app. We do have an app. You can also go to our website. But there's gonna be this section where it says, We Love LA. And you can just look through the different service projects, and you can choose one. Say, God, I'm gonna give up this one Saturday. Instead of whatever else it might be that you typically do. So I'm gonna make that Saturday not about myself, but about the people I'm serving. But not that this would be a one-time thing, but it'll become a first-time thing. And so after this, that we continue to have this heart to care for and serve those around us. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna make some space for you to just connect with God. And if you feel led to sign up for one of these projects, please do so. If you want to do it with your friends, your small group, that'd be awesome too. But go ahead and just take this time and spend it in prayer and prayerfully consider just how you can serve the city. And would you actually lift up a prayer? You know, I really believe that there's certain things we can do and certain things that we can't. And what we can't do, we have to say, God, I need you to show up. And would you pray a God-sized prayer for those days? Just whatever it is, God, I don't want to just go there and just have a fun time, but God, I want to see this. I want to see you working this way. Give me this kind of person to talk to, this person to just pour into. And pray that prayer. Let's see what God does. So go ahead in this time, just spend this time with God. If you feel led, then just join us. Join us in our We Love LA service projects.
Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, would you give us a like? Also, would you hit the subscribe and the notification buttons? And then you'll be notified about all future content that we post here. Also, if you want to get involved with our community, please fill out a Connect card and one of our pastors will be sure to follow up with you. Thank you so much for checking out this channel. God bless you.